I'm back with another video. This video is going to be a comparison on Pep Guardiola and Thomas Tuchel, two of the most influential managers at the moment, two of the most talked about managers at least in the English Premier League at the moment with how things stand. And we're going to look at how their structures are similar and how they're different and the thoughts on both of them. So there are some personnel decisions that had to be made when making this video. I chose to go with Walker and Stones on the left, even though he usually plays through the right half space. This was just in transition. Walker is a huge asset defensively and defending, especially covering a counter press. Stones, he's been in exceptional form, so I thought he deserved to be in the lineup. Then the next position I included Kevin De Bruyne, because long term he'll definitely be in the squad week in and week out as long as he's healthy, and Bernardo Silva then moved to the left half space. So as we know, Kevin De Bruyne is pretty much famous for these wrapped around crosses in behind the center defenders to players like on the weak side or in the blind side of the defenders. So I put De Bruyne through the right half space and Bernardo Silva in the left half space. And Gundogan in form at the moment. He's been playing the 10 role or the false 9, however you want to put it. But it could be quite often that Gundogan could switch with Bernardo Silva and vice versa with Kevin De Bruyne. Mahrez and Sterling holding the width. Pep likes to have high wingers, and this allows them to exploit qualitative one-on-one superiority through the wide areas. But let's look at the Chelsea setup, where we set them up in the defensive phase to begin with in a 5-4-1 or a 5-2-3. And we included Jorginho alongside Kovacic as the two holding midfielders, as I think moving forward that'll be the most frequent pairing. Conte will get in the side, but I'm not sure how much he'll get over these two. Werner, as he starts to get in form more and more, we might see more of him occupying the left half space and alongside Giroud playing through the center to then pin the defenders for Mason Mount in the 10 role, or Werner with his positional interchanges with Marcus Alonso on the left, and then Callum Hudson-Odoi as the right wing back in his new position. So let's talk about some of the concepts here as we move forward in the build-up phase for Manchester City. So Manchester City have often been playing with this asymmetric back four, which puts one player in each of the three vertical corridors in the center, and it puts João Cancelo as a inverted fullback and double pivot alongside Rodri, and this pretty much gives them the opportunity to influence the front three players of a team, so they can either narrow or they could have some asymmetry in midfield to then create space between the lines. But more often than not, in a 5-2-3, especially under Thomas Tuchel, the front three will be the players who then narrow because of this double pivot. And then this will create space for the center backs to go wider and then potentially look to then step out and progress the ball via dribbling. And when this happens, the goal will then be to pull out a wide midfielder or a winger, depending how you want to look at them. And now we can have these situations of asymmetric rondo situations through the half space with Stones on the ball, Sterling in the wide area, and Bernardo Silva between the lines. So from here, with this, Gundogan can even come over to pin Azpilicueta, and now we'll force the double pivot to shift over. And now Giroud will have to make a decision. Maybe he'll split them, but circulation will almost always be guaranteed with Diaz dropping off, or even Diaz just coming higher and letting Ederson be the outlet pass. But Diaz will probably be more than enough. So with Giroud having to make the decision as the front forward on which player he will be oriented towards, this can then create potential to progress through Cancelo, or if Giroud marks Cancelo, it would create the opportunity for circulation and maybe even a diagonal pass into Rodri to then springboard the attack between the lines. But that's just one situation. Another situation is their influence of the central players in the 5-2-3. So the 2-3 is the players we're talking about. So from here, with Diaz on the ball, we have Giroud, Mount, and Werner. And these players will then look to create passing options between the players. So even a bounce pass from Rodri in and back would be enough to collapse the players and then look to exploit through Cancelo, because once the ball is played in, superiority is created through one of the two double pivots, we can then see Manchester City in their unique 2-3 build-up shape with De Bruyne in the right half space, as we said, Gundogan in the 10 position or false 9 position, Bernardo Silva on the left, and now Cancelo and Rodri as the double pivots. So once this is created and the front line is broken, or even if they move to a 5-4-1, the potential for progression through the double pivot will be pretty much almost guaranteed if we're looking at a positional playing structure and even implementing a few ideas from game theory as well. So we're looking to then exploit players through the wide area, so a midfield shifting, Jorginho jumps, now Bernardo Silva operating in the blind side between the lines, and the varying heights from the attacking midfield 3 will also be crucial in creating space off of each other. So when Bernardo Silva is deeper, Sterling would be higher, and Gundogan might be higher as well to pin the back line, allowing Bernardo Silva more space. But with Sterling making a narrow run, Bernardo Silva then might go into the wide area, drawing out, and now Gundogan would drop in and create the rotation, and thus creating the wide structure in a much different way than we have seen from Manchester City in even the past 2 seasons. So always looking to get between the lines in the half space, and using third line movements is also going to be always a characteristic of Pep Guardiola's sides. But this will primarily be from the first line of defense. And one more thing, when Manchester City are building with the ball from the back, we can see that pressing from out to in almost favors the Manchester City shape because of their 3-2-3 build-up shape, because now if the Mason Mount's trying to use his cover shadow, there's no one he can block to, so it's almost irrelevant to do so, and this would lead to a vertical pass into Bernardo Silva, and even if the center defender jumps, they slide over. Cancelo and Rodri would then shift as well and be there for the third line pass. Jorginho would probably be drawn towards the pass, or the vertical pass, towards Bernardo Silva, and this would free up Cancelo to then look to progress the attack further forward. So those are the keys from Manchester City. And we can look at how they transition into defense as well. So if the counter press is broken, we have Stones and Diaz as the central defenders, Kyle Walker as the right back, Cancelo drops in as the left fullback. We have Rodri, and this is where it can become a little tricky, but I would say because of his physical qualities, I know he's played in the false 9 role or the 10 role sometimes defensively, but we can look at De Bruyne as a second central midfielder in the defensive phase. Bernardo Silva and Mahrez will be our 4-4 block, and now Gundogan and Sterling as the 9 and 10 in the defensive phase at least. So from here, Marcos Alonso occupies the height and width of the team on the left side. Werner, he occupies space a little bit higher up compared to Mason Mount as almost an asymmetric 10. Giroud splitting the center backs as the 9, and now we can look Rudiger on the left, Silva through the center, Callum Hudson-Odoi occupying the wide area on the right, and now Jorginho, Kovacic as the double pivot. So looking from here, Manchester City might not play this way. They might play with a 4-1-4-1 with Rodri as the pivot, Gundogan and De Bruyne then as central midfielders to then press further forward and try and use cover shadows to block wide areas. As we see, this might match up quite well against Chelsea Thomas Tuchel side. But for now, we're going to leave it at a 4-4-2 because they have defended that way in the past, and with Gundogan and Sterling as the 9 and 10. So from here, what we've seen from Chelsea so far under Thomas Tuchel, and Pep has had a lot more time and experience with his team, the main focus will, one, be on the Mason Mount between the lines and Timo Werner and whoever these players are to occupy these areas. So with Timo Werner between the lines, you have an added threat in behind because of his physical qualities. So he'll play a little bit higher up, or even when he comes deeper, this is to bait center back to jump or defender to then create space in behind to run into. So with Timo Werner between the lines, you have a unique situation where he's not quite the player to then receive these balls on the half turn and create something in the final third. He's more the player to finish these and use his pace to then use his qualitative advantage to then progress the ball. So with this, we have Mason Mount, who is the type of player to receive the ball between the lines and create something in the final third. So depending on how Manchester City play, we could very much see against a 4-4-2, Timo Werner, Giroud shifting over, and then allowing Mason Mount a more free role between the lines. And as the space is overstretched from Chelsea's first two lines, the 3-2 build-up, the first line passes and circulation, press would often be initiated, and then now we might see a staggered midfield shape and starting to see space forming between the lines. So if the ball was circulated, players then go and press, and now we have Mahrez, De Bruyne, Rodri, Bernardo Silva all sliding over. With the back four being pinned, we might have Marcus Alonso blocked through his cover shadow. Mason Mount could rotate over, or depending on which side he was occupying, Rudiger might be even able to find him between the lines, moving in the blind side of the Manchester City players. So that's one instance. Or the other instance that we've seen from Thomas Tuchel is Giroud playing off center, creating a third line passing option through the half space, but I don't think moving forward Thomas Tuchel will use this very much because of how it worked when it was implemented. But we can see one crucial instance that I think we'll see more of, and that's the numerical superiority created through the midfield with our four-man midfield block. And this comes with just the natural passing options that are formed when you have a double pivot and two attacking midfielders through the half space. So from here, we can have our midfield, and now it's just about attracting the press, exploiting this space, and looking to see how we can get this between the lines, assuming that Manchester City is going to press out to in, meaning forcing the ball into the center to try and win the ball in a more advantageous situation to then attack on goal. So, sorry, I forgot to add Mendy. I'm not going to change his number. Also, Drew is not number 9. Tammy Abraham is, so just bear with me on that. But back to the video. We have Azpilicueta and Rudiger looking to then play diagonal passes into the double pivot. And we also see the potential for the Rondo situation Thomas Tuchel uses in the wide area. And we have, if Rudiger's on the ball, he has a first line passing option with Kovacic, third line passing option with Werner, and then a second line passing option with Marcus Alonso. So from here, we have a situation with a Rondo concept and almost creating a 4 versus 2 situation through the mid block. if they shift over properly. If Gundogan can't get over, maybe they're dragged to one side and circulation is switched at a well-paced attempt. But from here, that's one avenue they can progress. But getting the ball into the holding pivots with superiority, able to face forward, can then springboard the attack into more advanced areas. And then the last little thing I want to talk about in terms of Thomas Tuchel has to do with Timo Werner and Marcus Alonso. And this is pretty much more as they move into the final third. Marcus Alonso and Timo Werner might interchange positions, and this would then again to be narrowing a player as in the fullback position, directing him more towards the half space, then trying to get the ball to arrive to Timo Werner with the opportunity to turn, and then he is in a more vacant space, a more open space, less dense, to then use his physical qualities to take players on 1v1 with space to dribble and run in behind. So that's just a quick analysis on what we've seen from Thomas Tuchel and what we've seen from Pep Guardiola in recent games. So I hope you enjoy the analysis. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.